It was like, okay, there was a show scheduled, so I produced works and I put them up. But I wanted to ask myself, what was the reason I was painting? While there's no objective, what is it that is driving me to painting? Why am I in it? So that there would come a point when I would get into this commercial world will start coming in, and I need to be very clear that my compass is not driven by that. So where is my compass pointing? Became my question that I wanted to find out.
I think art is a form of expression for an artist. It is so personal, it's inspiring, thought provoking. It's like a language in itself that can be interpreted in so many different ways and I believe can change lives. I am so in awe of all the artists that I have chatted with in this series, and I have personally learned and gained so much from each conversation. And I hope you do the same. So happy listening. Hi, everyone. Today I am in conversation with the very, very talented Rahul Inamdar. As a background to Rahul, he was, or not was, but is an MBA. He's an engineer. He had a very, very fulfilling corporate life for, if I'm not mistaken, about 10 years. And then in 2007, decided that he wanted to become a full-time artist. And I have seen his art in Dubai at the Dubai Fair, and also whatever I saw online. Looks like his art is extremely soulful and very, very reflective. So I'm really curious and very excited to have this conversation with you, Rahul. So thank you for joining in today.
Thank you so much, Payal, for having me on the show.
So Rahul, a little bit about your background.
I come from a normal middle class Indian household where we don't really dare to get into art. We want to have very linear professions like medicine, like engineering, and kind of have a predictable life from there. So that's what kind of I got into. Initially, after my engineering, I did my MBA, and I was pretty keen about marketing and advertising as the stream. So I worked with a couple of companies in India, and I think in 2007 is when I realized that this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I started painting actually in 2007. It took me a little more to kind of have the confidence to quit. So I really quit my corporate job as head of innovation in one of the companies in 2013. So in fact, this year I complete 10 years of my full-time art.
Oh, so from 2007 to 2013, you were you were sort of painting, but you were doing it in parallel to your corporate job.
Yes.
Till, like you mentioned, because you wanted to gain confidence. Okay, so how did
So
art, I mean, like, how did you think of art as, becoming a part of an integral part of your life?
it's very interesting. This has a connection with the life philosophy that one may want to live by. So once I got into corporate life, I realized that everything was towards a certain goal. You wanted to reach somewhere, and I multiple times I realized that when you reach there, you don't have the joy that you thought you would have. So the joy is actually in the walking towards than getting there.
Mhm.
I started feeling that there is something that I'm missing. This is not the way life should be led. And that was, I think, the beginning of my trying to do something without a brief, without an objective, just for the love of it. And that's how I got into art. I was introduced to art during school days. My mother paints. So
Okay.
there was a bit of exposure to oil paints. That's what I began with. I did not think of a genre that I like. Nothing. It was not towards an objective at all.
When I was researching you, I noticed at some point you mentioned that did you didn't say it in those many words, but that's the impression I got. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Is that you did reach a point where you were stuck, and you mentioned that you started writing. Am I? I mean, is that my correct interpretation of what
No,
I?
it did happen in sometime in 2017. I reached a point when I started um, uh, saying like, what is my language? So it has gone through multiple steps. Like when I had my first show, and this happened in 2013. My first show was a solo show. I made the works, I put it up, and after that show, I went into this period of no painting. So I like I kept thinking, and
But like, why was that?
uh, it was like, okay, there was a show scheduled, so I produced works and I put them up. But I wanted to ask myself, what is the reason I was painting? While there's no objective, what is it that is driving me to painting? Why am I in it? So that there would come a point when I would get into this commercial world will start coming in, and I need to be very clear that my compass is not driven by that. So where is my compass pointing became my question that I wanted to find out. So I started listing down the works that have really moved me. Some of them were works such as Monet's in Musello Orangery, then Rothko's in Rothko Chapel. Then there is this Hindustani vocalist singer Kumar Gandharv. Some of his pieces. So then there, I remembered a concrete road, then the texture of that and the feel, and all of these. I just wrote down these about 10 things that have given me goosebumps. I said there is something common in these that have appealed to me, to my subconscious, and I need to kind of make work which will kind of have the same effect on me. Now, obviously, you cannot prepare it. There is no recipe to it.
Yeah.
You just kind of make a work and then you say, okay, is it talking to me or not?
Yeah.
And that has been my editing parameter. I don't edit works. If the work is speaking to me, the work is telling me something that I don't even get it, but it's moving me, then it stays with me. If it is not, then it gets thrown away. And that has really been the simplest process. But these 6-7 months, I also did a lot of technical work because I am a self-taught artist. One is the kind of color that comes from a tube. So you buy an oil paint or you buy whichever one, rest of the colors. You need to understand the physics and chemistry of these colors. Like some colors are cheaper and some are more expensive, and one must understand why they are and what is the value that they are adding. Also, Indians call there's a word called sanskar. So you take something and you work on it to transform it into something. So even the colors that come out of your tube, to make them reach your canvas, there is a in between work that must happen. That work happens with the instruments, with the dilution, with the concentration, with the application, the reapplication. Understanding that every roll of a roller is like time passing. So one must, like, I would call it realization of the tools that you have. You must realize the tools so that then you can surrender to them.
Actually, I was going to ask, what are some of your struggles as an artist?
I would not call it a struggle. I don't like the word
You
struggle
don't
at
like
all.
the word struggle. Okay.
Because struggle is a notion of you feeling that something is incomplete. Like there is this friction internally in the word struggle. I would still call it an experimentation kind of thing. Uh, and if you're saying what you don't like in the journey of art, that I can tell you.
Okay.
So I don't like exhibitions actually. The problem with a show or an exhibition is that it makes it about it. So there's going to be an exhibition and I need to put out works. So either I start thinking about it or I still make works which are driven by the presence of that exhibition. And that is what I don't like. It's a reality of life that there is some bit of commercialization that has to happen. However, it does take away from the purity of practice in some way. That's how I believe. That is what I don't like. Apart from that, it's an incredible thing. Practicing something in your own space, in your like even the direction is your own, the exploration is your own, and all the failures are your own, and all the successes are your own, and that's really beautiful. Also, what happens is this medium is you will have to really listen to it for it to start talking to you. Most of the times, say if I'm writing, I can read what I've written. So the words already come as kind of vessels of meaning, right? I put the vessels and I can edit them and I can place them around. With colors, red may not be what it is known for, or a blue may not be what you associate it with. So it's far more free and to interpretation. So what one is trying to say using those colors or using the lines or planes, it's actually massively open. There isn't, and for oneself as well as for the viewer. So, so it's a very abstract journey in that sense, and that makes it very valuable actually to have. Like we don't really walk in the dark most of the times. Most of the times we want to have a structured, clear path.
Do you think that art has the power of actually changing lives from a social perspective?
Oh, it does. It has as much power as, say, meditation. If I were to put it out as, will meditation have power to change people's life? And I think everybody will say yes, it does. I think it's pretty universal in that sense. Um, but when I say art is a much abused word. Um, art has a lot of qualifiers. It's not something that we will just kind of see on a wall. And this I learned some time back. But art that can truly make us go silent, make us go within ourselves, and that's really powerful. It does change life, and I've experienced this.
Yeah.
It it makes you feel centered. It's like whichever activity that kind of, I think some people find their flow in sports when they're surfing, or maybe when they're doing yoga, or maybe when they're singing, and they find their flow. And sometimes when we are listening to music and there's a piece and we get lost. What is this getting lost? Getting lost is almost like stopping time, which is continuously moving through the actions that we keep doing all the time. And when we stop time, what happens is that we get into something called a time vacuum where we are just there. So we are almost kind of, it's exactly same space where we are concentrating on our breathing and without thinking anything else. I think that's a great, like in the world of Instagram and the entire social media. I think centering is something each one of us, if introduced to, misses. If not introduced to, yeah, we're free. We don't even know that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think it's extremely relevant today. In fact, the other thing about art is there is a connection between being human and art. I think it has that kind of um, there is like when we see a painting like Guernica, the kind of emotions that are aroused are not just because he has thrown those elements around, but the entire work itself moves us.
Mm.
So it's not some of the parts.
Yeah.
It's actually far beyond. And I think very rarely we see such things. So seeing art actually of every type can actually get us or make us a better human being, I would say.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Um, I saw that you also did some work on linen.
So as I explained, the material of the canvas is extremely critical. So I have used cotton canvas. I have used cotton paper, which is completely made of cotton and which is hot pressed and a very seamless surface. I've used linen canvas again, which is linen and coated, primed and sized.
Yeah.
I've used silk, all of them. Essentially, the canvases that we have are coated with, say, a color.
Right.
Gesso is what we call it, and we kind of coat it and work on the same, right? So basically, we are working on a surface which is almost a plastic surface. So it's a completely firm surface that I'm working on. So between cotton and linen canvas, I prefer linen canvas because I get a very tight weave and the surface is very smooth, which helps my work. But that's an absolute personal choice. It's basically when I'm using, so in we call it, what is a rolling pin, the baलन.
Yeah.
It's one of my tools that I use on canvas. So I want the least amount of resistance to that baलन movement. And that can only happen if the canvas is very smooth. Otherwise, I will have speed breakers. So that's why I prefer this. But going further from here, what I realized during COVID actually is that we have very little in our control in life. And we feel that we are in control. All the time we have this illusion of control. When COVID came and struck us and so many people lost their lives, lost their family members, and we were just at home, blocked in 3, 4, 5 months, not even stepping out. I started realizing that controlling an artwork is actually a very fake way of making the work. The art must happen, must flow. So I need to reduce my role from the maker of the work to just one of the instruments, those instruments that put it together. And that is where I said that I cannot be working on this primed canvas because it's very plasticized. Unless I work on it, it is not really playing a role. It is pretty passive. So in terms of my experiments, I went on the uncoated side of the canvas, which was like a fabric. On a fabric, when you put a drop of color, the color starts moving.
Yeah.
And even if you try to move it in a certain way, you can't. So it's almost like in the equation, there were colors, there was canvas, and there was me. And the canvas was being passive. Now, when I moved to the fabric of the canvas became active and my role reduced. And I made a whole series called Reduction on these, and which I showed in Delhi in my gallery. And incredible results. It's like what we don't realize is how much we lose out because we've been taught that things must happen in a certain way.
People who've like you, who would want to move towards being creative, but don't have the guts to do it, what would your advice be for them?
So I'd say, first of all, if you want to be creative and you're not being creative, that means you're working somewhere. You're doing some work, which maybe financially it supports you in some way. Have a lot of respect for that work. It feeds you. There's no point in struggling with that. It requires one small piece of your time. Reserve it for yourself. It could be 30 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour. In that time, do not do anything else but your calling. Answer your calling in that time. Just do it every day. And don't think about anything else. My experience is that calling expands because it is calling. It is not really something that you are trying to tell yourself. It's coming from a place which is beyond you. One, it starts feeding you back with a lot of nourishment. You become more and more anchored in that space. Second, it starts demanding more and more time of you. When you are not toned, the time is not difficult to give. When it starts demanding time, you will start giving time because you really are not in control. That voice is in control and you just kind of follow it. So I would say that the entire worldly thing of, okay, let me just quit my job and let me do this, and there's going to be responsibilities. Money is required, and that is a reality. there's no point in struggling with that. The idea is to kind of glide from the requirement of money to the requirement of your time. So converting your money back into your time is really the thing to do. For artists, I would say, again, our work, one question we need to ask is, what is our work? And that is the question that stays with us all through our life. Why do we do art? And what is it that we are doing in it? And it's not that you will get an answer now, or maybe the answer will come and it will go. But I think that is the question that will keep on giving you clarity, will keep you anchored, because there are a lot of things that will keep changing and that will keep on swaying you. But there's one thing that remains true, is that the art is coming through you. If you're not there, that art is not there. Yeah. So there is it's almost like a reason for your own existence. Yeah. Is that art. So I think all the artists, if they have kind of found it like a calling, then it is something that is beyond them, and they need to kind of just go with it.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true. I mean, and like you're saying, it's a process. So you don't, if it's something that is calling you, allow it to evolve into a very, very centered thought and experience before you jump into it. Like for you, from 2007 to 2013, you allowed that, emotion to find an outlet, and that's when you decided to kind of make that shift, right?
In 2012, I was attending one of my product launches, and I heard a voice saying, "Your work is done. Now you go." And next day I resigned.
Wow.
Because it was that clear. So I would say that when you start going with the flow, there is no choice. The choice gets made. Today we think that I am deciding. That's really not real. It gets decided. You just have to be with it.
Yeah, it gets decided. You just have to be with it. On that note, thank you so much, Rahul. It's just been really, really very inspiring to listen to you. And I hope, through this conversation, a lot of people who are listening in or who will eventually watch the interview on YouTube will also get inspired and, just keep at it. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot more evolution in what you do over the years. So I'm going to definitely follow that very, very closely. And I really appreciate your time and this conversation. For more weekly conversations, do listen to Melting Pot on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Follow us on YouTube and on Instagram at Podcast Melting Pot. So until the next episode, this is Payal signing off.